Perfect. Welcome everyone to the Town of Greater Napanee regular session of council for the 30th day of April 2024. Just before we get started, I just want to remind everybody that this meeting is being recorded and live streamed to the Town of Greater Napanee YouTube channel, so you have the ability to watch it later on if you wish, or if the folks that are out there live can watch it as it happens. So welcome everybody. We'll call the meeting to order. Just before we get going here, we'll start with our closed session matter. We'll look for a motion to rise and report from closed session meeting this evening. Moved by Councillor Hicks, seconded by Councillor Shank. If there's no further comments, questions, or concerns, all in favor of that motion? Opposed? Motion's carried. I'd like to report that in closed session this evening, Council approved the closed session minutes of April 9th, 2024, and received information regarding collective bargaining and gave direction to staff. Having said that, we'll look for a motion for the adoption of the agenda as presented. Moved by Councillor Martin, seconded by Councillor Benell. If there's no further comments, questions, or concerns, all in favor of that motion? Opposed? Motion's carried. Is there any disclosure of pecuniary interest in the general nature thereof? Seeing none. First up on the agenda are deputations, scheduled deputations with respect to new items. And we have a couple ladies this evening that are going to do a deputation. So come on up, ladies, and I'll give you sort of the Reader's Digest version. If you haven't been here before, it's really not that hard. It's just, we just have to make sure that, yeah, hang on. The microphones are in front of you, and there's a button on the right-hand side that says talk. And so when you go to talk, you have to make sure that you push the button and you hold it down. If you don't hold it down, I get some really, really, really bad text messages. So, and it's mostly, we can hear you. It's just mostly for the folks at home, and they want to hear it as well. So welcome. In front of us this evening, we have Marilyn Murray and Amanda Gray. So I'm not sure which one of you ladies are going to start, but whoever's going to start, you're more than welcome, and you have the floor.
Through your worship, thank you for the opportunity to present on behalf of the Lennox and Addington Stewardship Council our proposal for the first Little Forest project in the town of Greater Napanee. I am Marilyn Murray, Chair of the Stewardship Council, and to my right is fellow member Amanda Gray. We are here this evening to ask for Council's approval of this proposal.
So first of all, we'd like to commend Council for retaining ownership of the land on Marilyn Avenue as a green space. And it's our feeling that the creation of a little forest on this space would only enhance it as a green space. And just to give you an idea, the little forest would comprise an area roughly the size of a tennis court. So that means then that only a reasonably small portion of that land would be the little forest. And that means that the rest of the space could continue to be used by the neighbors adjacent to the property, and also just general members of the public who use it now to access the trail on the old rail bed, and also for walking their dogs and playing catch.
In Council's decision to maintain ownership of this green space, Mayor Richardson and many councillors recounted their personal connections to this area through the years. The addition of a forest and the many benefits that trees provide will only deepen this connection for the residents, both retirees and families, for years to come.
Sorry, everyone. Before you, you have an outline of the project, and in the best interest of your time, we really are here this evening to answer to any questions that you have. We do have partial funding from the LNA Activation Fund, which is contingent on Council's approval and is time sensitive. So that's all that we have to say. So any questions?
Great, thank you. You did a good job, and you're going to take my job. So that was going to be the next thing is if you just hang tight, we'll see if council has any questions with respect to your suggested project. So council, does anybody have any questions with respect to the presentation these ladies have done this evening? Go ahead, Councillor Hicks.
Through you, your worship. A quick question, the activation fund. So how much money have you requested, and when do you have to have council's approval or endorsement?
We're kind of running late on the deadline for this fund, so we really need the approval ASAP if possible, or we're going to lose that chunk of funding. Thank you, Councillor Hicks.
It is.
Yeah.
Okay.
1,750. We requested 5,000.
Yep, go ahead, Councillor Hicks.
So one further question. So we can make a motion to note and receive this, but I think what you're looking for is actually permission from the corporation to utilize the property for a little forest. Is
That's
that what
correct.
that's what you're looking for
Yes.
tonight? Are we able to do that tonight?
We are normally, I think Madam Clerk can let me know, but I think we need 2/3 of the vote. Normally what we would do with deputations such as this, we would sort of forward it back to council or to staff to do up a staff report. I don't think this one would be all that complicated, and we do have a meeting in 2 weeks. Madam Clerk, am I correct there?
Through your worship, that's correct. We do have a meeting again in 2 weeks on May 14th. And if council did want to decide on this tonight, the process would be first a motion to consider the meeting tonight and waive the normal waiting process, which would require 2/3 majority to pass, and then a second motion on whether or not to approve the request.
Now, having heard that, if we decide to just put this over for the 2 weeks, would that be enough? Would that still put you in that range of to have access to that activation fund? And I guess the second question I would have is, would you have the ability to work with staff in the next 2 weeks to put something together that could be brought back to council in the middle of May?
We would be able to work with you, Your Worship, yeah, within the next 2 weeks. I'm thinking we may lose the funding. I don't know.
Is there?
But if there was an indication from council that it will be approved, perhaps that would be sufficient?
Yeah, okay, and I guess that's sort of where I was going with it is if there's enough time, we do have the ability to make a decision on it tonight. Normally we wouldn't because we actually get quite a few deputations where people want decisions fairly quickly, but we always want to make sure we do our due diligence to make sure it is what it is. Now, I think this is a little bit of a different situation, but we do have the ability to do it. I just querying as to whether we have any time to do our due diligence or not. Because the last thing we would like or we want to do is risk you folks accessing that funding if at all possible you can get it, right? So
I appreciate that. And I also appreciate your concerns for needing more information, and we're certainly willing to do that. But because of the timeline of the project, Mayor Richardson, the land has to be prepared with a lot of organic material, and then it has to be left for a season. So if we don't do it this spring, we can't plant in the fall. If we do it in the fall, we wait till spring to plant. So we understand, but we're hopeful.
yeah, no, and I think you've been very helpful in the fact that, and we may have some more questions, a couple of questions I will have as to what are the timelines that we're looking at this. So obviously there won't be a tree go in the ground this spring probably because the ground has to be prepared. So there won't be nothing will happen probably till next spring, as I'm guessing, because there would have to be prep work and all that kind of stuff that has to happen first.
If we were able to get the organic material, this is quite a lengthy process because we want to make sure the community are engaged in the planning, because we want to make sure the residents are happy. They've had that green space for a number of years. Want to make sure that everyone is happy with what we're doing. And of course, the town, as the owner of the property, will need a say as to exactly where we put it. But if we could possibly get that done in the spring, we could plant in the fall. The trees would be ordered in the summer.
Okay, no, and for me that makes a lot of sense. That there is still some time to make this thing happen, but we need to get this ball rolling sooner than later, I guess. So go ahead, Councillor Penal, and then I'll go to Councillor Shank.
Thank you, Worship, through you. Thank you very much for coming in tonight and speaking with us. Just wondering, you asked the fund for $5,000 and you were granted $1,750 of that. What is the cost of the project? Will you be able to do the project for the $1,750, or will you be coming to the town asking for more monies?
No, we will not be asking the town for money. Any in-kind contributions would be appreciated in terms of wood chips. But no, there are other funding agencies. Little forests are becoming very, very popular throughout Canada. And there's an organization called Green Communities Canada that has a list of funders that we can call on, and there might be other local pockets that we can apply to.
Thank you.
Yep. Great. Councillor Shank.
Public land. So I agree with, I have no problem with it. I'm the farmer, so I know you're not going to be on the land right now because neither am I. So you're putting your organic material. I believe we should wait those 2 weeks until we have the meeting. All right. For the sole purpose. Well, then we can advertise. I don't live in that neck of the woods, but there might be some people saying, oh, I wanted to keep it open. I don't want to have the little, and then it's just an open process because there's no sense you doing a whole bunch of work and then all of a sudden you have the whole community or half the community saying, no, I don't want the little forest. I think it's great. I think more trees, the better. So the point is where it's located, I think it'd be an excellent asset to have, but I would go through the proper process and we'll have an answer for them in 2 weeks when we have a public meeting. Go ahead, we can get it approved. It's on the thing. And if everybody on council agrees with it, then done. And then you guys know at the same time, if there's any feedback after tonight's council meeting, what's going on, we advertise it also. And then if there's a pushback, then you know where you're standing also. That's my suggestion.
Yep. Thanks, Councillor Shank. Go ahead, Councillor Hicks.
This is more of a question for staff, those that are actually in the room tonight. And I'll look over at Chris. I don't know if this falls under parks and facilities, if it falls under public works, because it's not necessarily a park with swings and grass. I mean, there's still going to be grass to be cut because you're not using the whole thing. I also read that your stewardship management continues through till the end of 2028. And after that, it just basically lives on its own, I guess. It's established and it just continues, but the town may have to do some possible maintenance.
There should be no maintenance at that point.
Okay.
They're self-sustaining after the trees are established. There's so much organic material there, then the leaves fall onto the ground and improve the soil. So I don't anticipate that as being a problem.
So, and the trees are all of a size that they're not interfering with wires or they're not prone to, you know, deadfalls, that sort of thing. It's all urban sized, I guess.
Forest is comprised of canopy trees. There's several stories to it, right? The sub-story right down to shrubs. All of those trees are put in the forest. So I think the location is fine. I don't believe there are any wires. That's something that we would consult with the town, of course.
So I don't know if you're getting this, but I'm totally 100% in favor. So I know we can't actually do a straw vote, but if you're looking for an indication, I'm all in.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Hicks. And I apologize. I was just trying to find a resolution for us if we can that, if possible, and I'll float this out there, that we give support. Sorry, Madam Clerk, what was the word I used? In principle, under the understanding that a report and that under the understanding the report will come back in 2 weeks, which hopefully will give you the authority or the ability to make sure that that application is in. And then you come back in 2 weeks. If there, I think that the feeling of council is, oh, we want to support this. So if we give you a resolution in principle to allow you to move forward, unless there's something completely off base in 2 weeks, then but that will allow you to get, I'm hoping, allow you to make the application through the LNA Activation Fund. Does that sound reasonable? I just don't want you to lose the funding.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that, Mayor Richardson. I can't answer that because I'm not the funding body, but I think if you're giving some indication that it will go forward, I would hope that would be sufficient.
Yeah. And I'll probably go outside the box here, and maybe Madam Clerk will get mad at me, but if for some reason or indication you get some indication that that's not good enough, reach out to me. We have the opportunity, if need be, to call a special meeting for something like this if we have to. So
I thank you very much.
We'll, let's try it this way first and see how it goes. We just want to ensure that our due diligence is done, and that's, I don't think there's anybody here sitting around this table this evening. I think it's a great idea. And you give us enough information tonight. I like the idea. It's a tennis court size, so there's still access to the rest of the park, but it provides, kind of a neat aspect to that park, right? So, it's kind of a neat idea. So I'm very interested in seeing it. So, if in fact, that's the direction, Madam Clerk will give us a bit of a idea as to how we're going to word this, because
Okay.
she's very good at wording it.
Excuse me, through your worship, if I could just add that a phase 2 of this would be the addition of an outdoor classroom, which Deputy Reeve Calver was very interested in. So that would be built into phase 2 of it. So it would be within the same area, so the children can enjoy the forest around them while they're learning outside.
Yeah. Which I think is really kind of neat, because they're right next to the school, right? So, and they're within the neighborhood of other schools. So I think that would be a really neat aspect to it as well. So, Madam Clerk, I will get you to help me out with some wording here, and we'll see how it goes.
So through your worship, some potential wording for council's consideration is the council note and receive the deputation from Marilyn Murray and Amanda Gray. Further, the council support the proposal for a tiny forest from the Lennox and Addington Stewardship Council in principle. Further, the council refer the request to staff to develop a detailed installation plan which ensures the most effective use of space, that all public infrastructure is protected, and that notice of the proposed plan is given to the surrounding property owners. And further, that staff report back to council with a detailed plan for council's final consideration and approval.
Council, I think that probably covers what we need to, and I'm sure that we'll see it probably in the next couple of weeks. So,
I'll move.
moved by Councillor Hicks. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Martin. Is there any other further comments, questions, or concerns with respect to? Go ahead, Councillor Shank.
Well, April 17th of this year, you were already approved for the 1750?
Yes, contingent on the town's
All right,
approval, yes.
Okay. Yep. Thank you.
So that's, I think that's good news as well, as that. I'm hoping if something changes, please let us know, but I think this should suffice into acquiring that funding, and we'll just sort of tidy up the details on it at the next meeting. So,
Thank
sorry,
you very much.
we do have a mover and a seconder. If I'm correct, Madam Clerk. Do we have any other comments, questions, or concerns with respect to the presentation? Go ahead, Councillor Pennell.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I just feel that this is a property that we had some contentions on, and for us to make a snap decision on this, even though that it's in principle, I think we need to take more time on this to figure out and to see what the residents want, and also maybe reach out to the school, because if we're going to have a classroom that they will be coming over to, like, what I need to just slow down on this.
Thank you, Councillor Pennell. Like I say, I'm hoping that in the next 2 weeks, I haven't got a crystal ball, but I'm hoping in the next 2 weeks, a lot of these concerns will be resolved. Is there anybody what else would like to say anything with respect to the motion that's on the floor? We'll see where the motion on the floor goes, Councillor Pennell, and then we'll reassess. So is there anything anyone else would like to speak with respect to the presentation or the motion that we have on the floor? Go ahead, Councillor Shank.
So just so you understand that you're giving approval in principle, so therefore we all, like, as the vote goes, hopefully we all agree with it. But if there was a major pushback from the residents or anything else, you have to understand that this is like a partial green light, but not a full green light. Just so you know, so everybody understands what they're doing.
I appreciate that.
Thank you, Councillor Shank. Is there anything else that anyone would like to say with respect to the presentation or the motion that's on the floor? Seeing none, we'll call the vote. All in favor of the motion that's on the floor? Opposed?
Abstained.
Councillor Pennell has abstained. The motion is carried. Thank you, ladies. I look forward to seeing more information on it, and it really is quite a novel idea, so thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Next up on the agenda are deputations with respect to items on the agenda. And Madam Clerk, I don't believe that we have any. Correspondence, items on the agenda, unfinished business. And that takes us directly into the administrative consent agenda. And it's a fairly long consent agenda, so we'll start to go through and then we'll look for a motion afterward. And I do think that there are a couple things that need to be pulled out. There's some indications. So we'll start off with the council minutes for the regular session of council, April 9th, and special session of council, April 15th, 2024. Is there any discussion that anybody wants to have with respect to those council minutes? Seeing none, the committee minutes, Municipal Heritage Committee. Is there anything anybody wants to discuss with respect to the Municipal Heritage Committee? And Councillor Martin, do you want to make any comments there? So go ahead, you got the floor.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll let the report pretty much speak for itself, but there was one thing I did want to mention. The committee, we've come up with basically a secondary placking system. And it's for non-designated properties basically, but it's for buildings that may have particular significance to it or a history. And I just brought a sample of the plaque that we're discussing about putting on the buildings or properties right at the moment. So I just wanted to bring that up about the placking system. And other than that, I'll let the rest of the report speak for itself.
Great, thanks, Councillor Martin. Is there any other questions or comments with respect to the Heritage Report? Seeing none, correspondence for information items dated April 30th, 2024. And I know that Councillor Pennell wants to remove item number 15 and 18, have some discussion about those. Am I correct?
Yeah, yes, Mr. Mayor, that's correct.
Okay, well, is there anything else that anybody wants to have any discussion with respect to that correspondence for information? Seeing none, proclamations, Lupus Awareness Day, Emergency Preparedness Week, and the VON Week. Is there anything that anybody wants to bring attention to? And I'll just note that Lupus Awareness Day is May 10th, 2024. Emergency Preparedness Week is May 5th to 11th, 2024. And the VON Week is May 19th to the 25th, 2024. Is there any comments or questions with respect to those proclamations? Seeing none. New proclamation request, Menstrual Health Day, May 28th, 2024. Is there any comments or questions with respect to that? Seeing none. Memorandums of Delegated Authority, April 24, 2024. Is there any questions or comments with respect to that report? Seeing none. Access E11 procedures. Is there any questions or comments or anything anybody wants to bring to our attention with respect to that report? Seeing none. The 2024 outdoor patio license, Fool's Kitchen at 19A Market Square. Is there anything within that report that anybody would like to bring to our attention or speak to, or speak at or for? Seeing nothing. The activity report, Infrastructure for Services, April 2024. Is there anything in the activity report that anyone would like to ask of Mr. Nobes? Is that your, or no? No, sorry.
I can do my
Miss
best.
Kelly, sorry about that. I got to the wrong end of this, sir. Is there anything in that report, Christy, that you wanted to bring to anybody's attention? Any highlights, or we'll take bad news if there's any bad news as well. But is there anything you'd like to highlight there? And then I'll find out if council has any questions.
Through your worship, nothing to highlight, but I'm available for any questions.
Great, thank you. Is there any questions for Christy with respect to that report? Seeing none, activity report, Fire Department, April 30th, 2024. And Chief Armstrong, welcome. I'm glad we got a reason to bring you here and have a conversation. Welcome to the organization. We're very happy to have you. Is there anything in that report you'd like to highlight or bring to our attention?
Thanks very much, Your Worship. Not at this time, but I'm certainly open to answering any questions with respect to that. And a report will be forthcoming as I get more into the job here.
Yeah, and we appreciate it and thank you very much. So is there any questions for Chief Armstrong with respect to his report? Seeing none, the activity report, Legislative Services, April 2024. Madam Clerk, I believe that's something you will speak to.
Through your worship, nothing specifically to add to this, but available for any questions.
Is there anything that anybody has with respect to that report for Madam Clerk? Seeing none, Community and Corporate Services Activity Report. And who do we have from Community and Corporate Services? Mr. Zetterberg, is there anything you want to highlight there? Sorry, so you're defaulted into doing this one, so.
Nothing additional, Your Worship.
Great, thank you. Is there anybody that wants to ask Mr. Zetterberg? Councillor Hicks.
Through you, Your Worship. Brant, have all the summer positions been filled now? Is the interview and selection process done, like summer students?
They are, and I think the start date is next week. if I'm not- Yeah, it's next week they start.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Hicks. Is there any other questions with respect to Community and Corporate Services? Yep, Councillor Shank.
This is a good news story. That P&D ceiling and lines are scheduled to surfacing North Fredericksburg for our pickleball. And I know we've been waiting a long time, but as soon as it's consistent of 13 degrees Celsius or higher or warmer, for them to apply the acrylic surfacing bond to the asphalt. So that's a good news story.
Thank you.
Because there's a lot of people who love pickleball.
Yes, and I know that we have had some inquiries, so it's going to be exciting to get those lines on there and see the pickleballers outside. So, yeah, go ahead, Mike.
This is another story. If we could look into, because where I live, I get Loyalist. Also, they have a seniors pamphlet, what they're what they're offering for seniors programs. All right. If we could get like a little update, what we're offering. I know we have SOS and there's other things that we contribute, but what we're doing because I've had seniors saying, they love the pickleball. They've been waiting to get into that. There's been other problems where they would just like to know if there's any other possible things at the town, because some of them have some other ideas, then I can guide them in the right direction. That's all.
Yeah, okay, great. I think probably staff have heard your request, and I'm sure that they will see if they can provide that information. So is there anything else for Community and Corporate Services? Oh, sorry. Councillor Hicks, and I go to Madam Clerk.
Just through you, Your Worship. Brant, the seedling giveaway, is proof of residence in Greater Napanee required to pick up trees? Because I plan on going. I just need to know what I have to have.
Through Your Worship, I don't have the answer to that question, but I'll find out for you.
Thanks, Councillor Hicks. Is there any other questions or comments? Seeing none, and I apologize, Mr. Nobes, I somehow skipped over you, which I don't know how I did that, but we'll come back to you with respect to growth and expansion, April 30th report. Go ahead, Michael.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just wanted to highlight that staff were able to submit the Housing Enabling Water Systems Fund application before the deadline. Big thanks to finance and utilities staff for helping out with that. We're really happy to see that the province increased the budget for that funding from 200 million to 825 million. And we're very optimistic that we should have some success with that funding stream, given the direct alignment with the wastewater treatment plant project with that stream.
Yeah, great. Thanks. Thanks, Michael. I think that is good news, and we're all got our fingers crossed and our toes crossed and anything else we can cross to hopefully have access to that fund. So is there any questions or comments for Michael with respect to his reports? Seeing none. Financial services, Ms. Hamill, is there anything you'd like to highlight?
Thank you, Your Worship. I don't have anything specific for this month's report to highlight, but available for questions.
Great, thanks. Alan, is there any questions or comments for Alan with respect to her report? Seeing none. And Access E11 report, March 2024. And Madam Clerk, is that sort of falling into your category there?
Through Your Worship, I can really only speak to the stats on here from my department, but I'm sure everybody here is available for any questions.
Thanks, Jess. Is there any questions or comments with respect to the E11 access report? Seeing none, we'll look for a motion, and it's going to be a fairly lengthy one, so bear with me. That council note and receive the minutes of the regular session of council dated April 9th, 2024, and the special session of council dated April 15th, 2024 be adopted as presented, that the draft municipal heritage report minutes of April 18th, 2024 be received, that the correspondence for information items dated April 30th, 2024 be received with the exception of those that Councillor Pennell would like to speak to shortly. The council received for information and endorsed the following proclamations. May 10th, 2024 is Lupus Awareness Day. May 5th to 11th, 2024 is Emergency Preparedness Week. And May 19th to 25th, 2024 is VON Week. The council proclaim May 28th, 2024 as Menstrual Health Day in the town of Greater Napanee. That council received for information the memorandums of delegated authority under the procurement policy bylaw for April 2024. That council received for information the Access E11 procedures report, and that council received for information the 2024 outdoor patio license Fool's Kitchen at 19A Market Square report, and further that council approve an outdoor patio license for Fool's Kitchen from May 1st to September 30th, 2024 for the patio on the sidewalk in front of 19A Market Square with the exemptions to sections 4A, B, C, and D of the town's outdoor patio bylaw number 0438, subject to a number of conditions which are contained within the report in front of us. Look for a motion to receive those. Moved by Councillor Pennell, seconded by Councillor Martin. If there's no further comments, questions, or concerns, all in favor of that motion? Opposed? Motion's carried. Items for consideration, and we'll start with the first matter. I think Councillor Pennell wants to speak to a supportive resolution request with respect to water testing. And Councillor Pennell, you've got the floor.
Thank you, Worship. I'd like to deal with number 18 first, which is a letter that was sent to you, Your Worship, and to council from the Kingston and Area Real Estate Association. And what the letter involves is that there is a water testing lab on Berry Street in Kingston. It's one of 11 labs in Ontario, and this lab is being considered to be closed. And this would have a huge impact, not only on the real estate industry, but also on anybody that has a rural well, as it provides free testing for E. coli and bacteria of wells, so that we could have clean drinking water in the rural areas. It's very important that we lobby to have that remain open, because just because it's in Kingston, it does not just service Kingston, it services Hastings, Lennox, and Addington, and Frontenac counties as well. So they sent us a letter and asking us to support them in this. And I do have a motion that I would like to read, or would the council like to ask me any questions?
Let's see if we have any questions, then we'll entertain a motion. I think we want to do separate motions for these, Madam Clerk, if I'm not mistaken. So does anybody have any questions? Go ahead, Councillor Hicks.
So through you, Your Worship. So Dave, if I want my water tested from my well, I can't just drop it off in Napanee and it would go to Kingston?
Through Your Worship, to Councillor Hicks, you can drop it off at 99, but we're not quite sure where the lab would be if the one in Kingston closes. So right now, 99 Advance Avenue is a drop-off area for us locally, or you can always drive it down to Berry Street to have it actually dropped off right at the lab. That's where the water goes from here. So right now, it's out. We're not quite sure what will happen if it closes, if the water from here will be taken to a different lab or whatnot, or what's going to happen. But we're just right now trying to ask the government to leave Berry Street open.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hicks. Is there any other questions or comments for Councillor Pennell before we entertain his motion? Seeing none, go ahead, Dave.
Thank you, Your Worship. I would like to make a motion that council send a letter of support to the president of the Kingston Area Real Estate Association, and further that a copy of the letter to be sent to Premier Doug Ford, Deputy Premier and Minister of Health Sylvie Jones, MPP of Hastings, Lennox and Addington Rick Brise, and MP of Hastings and Lennox and Addington, Selby, Cramp, Nyman, and all remaining 443 municipalities of Ontario.
Great. Moved by Councillor Pennell. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Norrie. Is there any further comments, questions, or concerns with respect to the motion that's on the floor? Seeing none, we'll call for the vote. All in favor of the motion? Opposed? Motion's carried. I think the next one, Dave, is water testing again, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, thank you, Worship. Thanks, Council, for doing that last one as well. This one here is a letter that we received from the Township of Loyalist, and it's exactly the same. They're sending it to the same people, and I just thought that us council would send Loyalist a letter of support as well.
Great. Thanks, Councillor Pennell. Is there any questions or comments for Dave before we entertain a motion? Seeing none, Dave, I'm sure you have a motion there.
Thank you, Worship. The motion that Council of Greater Napanee note and receive the letter from Loyalist Township and support the letter on the public health labs.
Moved by Councillor Pennell, seconded by Councillor Hicks. Is there any further comments, questions, or concerns? If not, we'll call for the vote. All in favor of the motion? Opposed? Motion's carried. Next matter up is supportive resolution request organ donation petition. Did you want to speak briefly to this, Madam Clerk, or did you want me to? Organ donation month is this month, and in speaking to the folks that come to represent the organ donation, they had asked if we would support them in their quest to lobby the government to do somewhat of a reversal consent, in the fact that rather than sign your driver's license to consent your organs, that you would have to contact the government and say you don't want to donate your organs. It's a process that I think is currently being done in one of the eastern provinces, if I'm not mistaken. And of course, it's very unfortunate that those folks aren't here, but to talk about the lives that are saved with respect to organ donation. They've dropped off a copy of they've got a petition going, and they've dropped a copy off with us if we wish to, if anybody wished to sign it, but they're also looking for some support, a letter of support for their cause with respect to organ donation within this province. Go ahead, Councillor Pennell.
Thank you, Worship. Through you, I have a letter to Madam Clerk, or a question, sorry, to Madam Clerk, on what is the policies for council for signing petitions? Is it a good practice, bad practice, or should we just, instead of signing a petition, offer a letter of support?
Through your worship, when you are signing a petition, you are signing as yourself, as an individual citizen of this country and this province. When you are passing a motion of support, that is acting on behalf of the council of the corporation. So I don't know if either carries more or less weight with the government entities that look at these, but it's in one case you're just representing yourself as a participant in the democracy, and in another case you're representing the council and the community.
Okay, thank you. So we'll just be dealing with the ask for a letter of support then tonight. Is that correct?
Through your worship, yes, that's correct.
Thank you.
Yep, thanks, Councillor Pennell. That's what the intent was. So we do have, I think, some wording, do we not, Madam Clerk, that if council wishes to do a letter of support, we do have some wording that is out there and available.
Yes, through your worship, if council wanted to support this, you could receive for information the correspondence from Transplant Advocate Association regarding their petition to introduce legislation for presumed consent for organ donation, and further, the council direct a letter of support for the petition be sent to the Transplant Advocate Association.
Councillor Hicks, I'm thinking you're going to move that by motion.
I'll move. Thank you.
Moved by Councillor Hicks, seconded by Councillor Norrie. Is there any other comments, questions, or concerns with respect to? Go ahead, Councillor Shank.
I've signed, back of my license plate, organ donor. I've known a lot of people that have passed away because they couldn't get an organ. I totally agree. Being an organ donor, that's helping the next generation or somebody that needs that is, you know, that's my own belief. But to go ahead and arbitrarily say to anybody else, saying you're going to be an organ donor now, and you have to go ahead and contact somebody else or the government to say you want to be opt out of it. I still believe in your freedom of information and freedom, you know, of what you want to do with your own body. But I don't believe I myself should dictate to somebody else that you're going to be an organ donor and then you have to contact the government to opt out if you opt out of it. So this is a fine line. I myself, I'm an organ donor and I totally believe in it, but I think we might be stepping over to Garrett saying that you now are going to be an organ donor, but you have to opt out of it. You know what I mean? If somebody in their own heart does not sign in the back of their license to be an organ donor, but I'm going to force that person to be an organ donor because he forgot to, the problems that you might arise that to some family member that got killed in a car accident, and then he automatically, this passes and say, oh, well, you took this from my son or daughter or whatever. Oh, well, you were supposed to contact the government to opt out. And this is a municipal level, so I'm staying out of this one. I am not in favor of passing what somebody does with their own body and their own family is their own business. That's why I agree with organ donating, but it's what somebody does is their own business. Like,
Yeah, and I think we all realize that it's the responsibility of the province, and I do apologize. I guess it was the province of Nova Scotia that has already gone down this path. So, is there anything anybody else would like to say before we call for the vote? Seeing none, we do have a motion on the floor, and we'll call for the vote. All in favor of the motion? Opposed? 3-2, Madam Clerk. I have to vote. 4. Motion's carried. Next up, 2024 Quarterly Financial Operating Report. And Nathan or Alan? Come on up, Alan. When you get in and settled, the floor will be yours.
Thank you, Your Worship. So before you have our update for our Q1 financials, our year-to-dates. So as seen in the report, everything is kind of within the expected range that we were prepared to see at this point in time, period ending the end of March 2024. There are, of course, some single expense line items and seasonal fluctuations that are going to skew the numbers up to your year-to-dates. But generally speaking, I feel good that we're in good shape overall as a corporation. If I have any further questions, I'm happy to take those now.
Thanks, Alan. Does anybody have any questions for Alan with respect to her presentation or the report that's in front of us with respect to the quarterly financial operating report? Seeing none, we do have a recommendation the council receive for information the Financial Services 2024 Quarterly Financial Operating Report for the period of ending March 31st, 2024. Moved by Councillor Shank, seconded by Councillor Martin. If there's no further comments, questions, or concerns, all in, oh, sorry, go ahead, Councillor Shank.
that was awful easy, eh, guys?
Perfect. Thanks, thanks, folks. We got a motion on the floor. All in favor of the motion? Opposed? Motion's carried. The corporate cell phone policy. Oops, sorry. I've skipped over another one. The leak forgiveness policy, 8.3 on our agenda. And Nathan, are you going to speak to that one? Go ahead.
Through your worship, this policy's been brought forward a couple times with those previous requests, but after the last council, we decided to bring it back as a standalone item to get a little more focus and get some feedback from council. happy to take any questions or add any commentary where needed. But at this point, this is what staff has come to, and we're hoping to get some feedback or either move forward with it to have a formalized process if these requests do come forward, whether we're telling residents or individuals or organizations that we no longer offer relief, or if we do, here are the steps you need to follow.
Yeah, thanks, Nathan. Does anybody have any questions or comments with respect to the policy that's presented before us and the relief calculation or anything? Go ahead, Councillor Nori.
Thank you. I'm for the leak forgiveness. I'm for the policy, and I'm glad to see there's appeal process because you can't figure out every situation, as you know. So it seems very well, and I think we should stick with the forgiveness under your under direction.
Thanks, Councillor Nori. Is there any other comments or questions? Seeing none, I do think it's prudent for us to come up with a little bit maybe more formal policy with respect to these things, just so we can keep everything consistent and current and try and feed it, try and treat each and every person or each and every organization fair within the community. So thank you for doing that. We do have a staff recommendation that council approve the accidental water leak forgiveness policy as presented. Moved by Councillor Shank, seconded by Councillor Nori. If there's no further comments, questions, or concerns, all in favor of that motion? Opposed? Motion's carried. Now we'll move on to 8.4, the corporate cell phone policy. And Madam Clerk, is that yours? The floor is yours.
So through your worship, I believe the report speaks to most of the details, but I did just want to note that this was originally intended to be a conversation closer to the election with impact on the next term of council, but just given the way we do our acquisition cycles, the timing makes more sense to have this conversation now. We do believe there are good operational and policy reasons to include council within the cell phone contracts for the town in order to provide you the tools to effectively do the jobs that you're being asked to do for the community. But obviously we understand that there's a council may have other opinions on the topic, so happy to have a conversation about this.
Great, thank you, Madam Clerk. Does anybody wish to start weighing in? Councillor Pennell, go ahead.
Thank you, Worship, through you. I kind of have a hybrid on this. Personally, myself, when I'm reading in the report that, you know, by having a corporate cell phone, that I won't be giving out my personal number. In my particular case, the more of my numbers out there, the better. With having a phone number that could be transferred if I was unsuccessful in the next election, I agree that if we had a phone number that could carry over so that the residents have that one number and they carry on to that and get used to that. But for myself to carry two cell phones around, I don't think I'd be doing that myself. I think I'd personally be call forwarding the second one over to my other phone. So a little bit, I step both sides of this line on this. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Pennell. Councillor Nori.
Yeah, initially I don't have a problem with my number, and like say people knock on my door, that's fine. But then we had a discussion and freedom of information. If someone puts out for something, I don't want my phone tied up with my personal phone tied up for some amount of time, which could happen. And that's my only concern now. So I'll be in favor of the cell phone policy and forget my phone number.
Thank you, Councillor Nori. Is there any other comments or questions? Councillor Hicks.
Through you, your worship, the thought of carrying two phones just makes my head ache. So if I were to forward the number, is that an issue? Does that negate any security options, or because I'm not carrying two phones? And I understand what you're saying, Councillor Nori, about freedom of information. So what you're saying is someone takes your phone because of some sort of inquest or inquiry. I understand. I would like to think that my phone will never be subjected to that, but So is forwarding the number an issue?
I think Madam Clerk can weigh in, but, so go ahead, Andrew.
Thank you. Through your worship. No, it's not going to be an issue because we'll still be able to track the numbers, the calls coming in to your town number, even though it's getting forwarded. So there's no issues or concerns there. Text messages obviously aren't going to get forwarded anyway. And any other town services, email and so on will reside still on that corporate phone rather than your personal phone. So there's no concerns from our side on that.
Okay, so now when I'm somewhere, because I don't carry the tablet with me or my laptop, I just read emails on my personal phone. I'll no longer be able to do that. I'll have to have the corporate phone.
I'm looking at Jessica for confirmation, but that I think is what the policy is suggesting, so that we can secure your personal email and devices.
Go ahead, Councillor Pennell.
Thank you, Worship. Just my thoughts on what Councillor Hicks was saying is that I receive Outlook emails from the corporation on my cell phone. That is there. It also shows up on my cell phone and on my computer, which you guys all have access to anyway. So I don't see that being an issue with if there's any privacy or if there's an investigation or anything, because it's out there, they can have anyway. So I do believe that if you're using that program to receive and respond to emails, that should be fine, but I stand to be corrected.
Thank you, Councillor Pennell. Yeah, did you want to?
Yeah, thank you, through your worship. Again, a lot of this is around the privacy of your personal information and your personal devices. So whilst yes, our interest is protecting corporate data, when that freedom of information request comes in and that information is held on your personal device, it does open that up for scrutiny as well. Is my understanding, Madam Clerk.
Through your worship, yes, that's my understanding as well. It's more the concern that, yeah, if a person needed to access your device for corporate records, but you have personal records also on there, that would be where the privacy concern would come in. And also, some of this might be around understanding everybody has different philosophies around this, but there might be points in your life where it's a benefit to be able to leave the town email at home because you're going on vacation and you're not doing, you need a break, or you're wanting to spend time with your family and you don't necessarily want it to go sending you constant notifications while you're having dedicated personal life time. That is one of the other potential benefits of having the two separate devices. Not a requirement, but might be something that's important to people. And we'd certainly like to be able to give you the option, at least, instead of saying you have to give up your personal phone and your personal life to be accessible to taxpayers at all times, like to give you tools to set your own boundaries about how you manage that relationship.
Yeah, go ahead, Councillor Shank.
So, so under the freedom of information, from what I understand, I have just my own personal phone, which I get town emails on. And as everybody knows, I'm not an email type person, but all I'm saying is so if somebody wanted to go ahead and say, I want to know what emails or something or the Councillor Shank has done, then my personal information becomes their information because they're going through my personal information, right? With my cell phone. I just want to get this correct. But if I have not used this for the email, but since because I have a laptop, which the town provides, and I have my own personal cell phone. So if somebody through freedom of information could actually ask for my cell phone, my personal cell phone.
Through your worship, no, that's not within the scope of the freedom of information process. What a person would ask for is specific records related to a specific inquiry. Your own personal information is protected by its own exemptions. Realistically, it would be much more likely that your device would need to be taken in if there was some sort of a investigative process that it was communications were related to. Rather, the freedom of information is not likely to ever impact your personal device. It's because we should realistically be able to access those records without needing to access the physical device for it. And a person, it's not a legitimate freedom of information request to say, I want to see all of Counselor X's email communication. That's not, wouldn't be reasonable scope on a request.
Yeah, go ahead, Mike.
So, Mr. Mayor, I look at it this way. I've been doing this a long time. A lot of people know my cell phone. If they have a concern, I can't solve a problem if I don't know the problem. All right. So for me, bouncing from one vehicle to the other or whatever, then having two phones, I don't need the extra cell phone now. Now I have to understand that my personal phone is not. And I ran for the job. I understand I'm going to be getting all sorts of phone calls. Some authentic, some are questionable, but the point is I ran for the job. It's part of my job.
Yes, but
I can understand.
to that point, I think we got to be very cautious, and I'll bring sort of attention to what Councillor Pennell said, is that it's to my advantage to have my number out there, but you cannot use this position or job to your advantage with your personal or your business life, and that's where I think, at least in my case, I would support this, because, like I say, it's yes. And my number has been out there for a long period of time to some people that maybe aren't all that savory. However, and it hasn't hurt me, but I personally don't want to be put into a position where that could happen. And in order to keep these things separate, at least in my situation that I will speak to personally, I think it's important that the two things need to be kept separate, so that none of us end up in a jackpot. At least on my opinion anyway, so. Is there any other questions? And we do have, go ahead, Councillor Hicks.
So as a dedicated Apple user, are we talking Android? Do I have to learn new technology if I get a corporate phone? And are there classes available?
Yeah, go ahead.
Through your worship, about 95% of town distributed devices are Apples.
I'll go along, I guess. I do see the benefit to it. I do, but it's a pain in the purse to carry two phones.
And I will throw it out there, and probably Madam Clerk will get mad at me, but is there an option if you decide to opt out, that there would be some form of a disclosure that you would sign that says, I'm opting out of this program?
Through your worship, some of the municipalities that we spoke to through the survey process do have as an opt-in, opt-out. So it's at the discretion of each individual member what they prefer to do for their term.
So I suppose that if you don't want to carry two cell phones, but you're also signing a waiver, accepting the risk that if something does happen, you're going to own it. That's at least how I would interpret it anyway. So is there any other comments or questions or concerns with respect to this? If not, we'll see where, we do have a recommendation. We'll see where it leads us. Seeing none, recommendation the council receive for information the Legislative Services Corporate Cell Phone Policy Report, and further that council direct that future amendments to the corporate cell phone policy extended its applications to include the provisions of corporate phones for municipal purposes to all members of council. Do we have a mover? Moved by Councillor Norrie, seconded by Councillor Martin. Is there any other further comments, questions, or concerns with respect to the motion that's on the floor? Seeing none. All in favor of the motion? Opposed? The motion's carried. Corporate and Community and Corporate Services Town Hall exterior painting. And I think Mr. Brown is on that one. So whenever you get settled in, Chris, the floor will be yours.
Thank you, Mayor, and members of council. I don't have a ton to add to the report. Most of the details are in there involving the scope of work and the project that we are really looking forward to. I think everyone understands that we need to put some work and time and effort into this building that we're sitting in here today. And staff are really excited about this opportunity. So as the report states, we're just looking for approval to award this to the brick painters. They're very unique in their approach. They're not just slapping some paint on the walls. They have a finish that is very unique. So they did a sample, they've been to the site several times, looking around, making sure that they're quoting the job appropriately. Staff are very comfortable with their work, the history, and their proven success in historical buildings. They're very excited to work on historical buildings. That's the preferred work that they like to do. There is a memo of authority attached to the report as well, because we did not go out for tender for this. We looked at different options as we were getting ready to quote the job. All the exterior painters out there are very similar in the scope of work that they can complete, whereas this company out of Smith Falls is all over the world. That includes the United States and even other countries. And we are really looking forward to working with them on this project. And I'm happy to answer questions that you might have involving the process.
Thanks, Chris. Is there any questions? Go ahead, Ange.
Through you, Your Worship. Well, I'm excited too, because it's long overdue. I do have one question, Chris, and that is, they make reference to a field panel. So I know they've got the samples down on the southwest corner. How big is the field panel? Is this something that they do just to make sure that their process and the colors and everything are working before they? Okay, so when do they expect to have that completed?
So that they can do that as they start the job. They just want to make sure that we are happy with the color. And no single brick is the same, which is a part of their process. They've already given us a nice sample on the wall. There's actually a couple different shades of red, a darker one, a lighter one. So they just want to make sure that we are happy with the color, and we can kind of approve that as we start the job.
And which color are you going with? The light or the dark?
So we're happy to include council's input on this, but we are excited about returning the original color of Town Hall, which is the red brick, and a little bit of a darker tinge to it as well. So it'd be like a dark red.
Well, you have my vote, yes, for what it's worth. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Hicks. Is there any other questions or comments for Chris with respect to his report or his presentation? Yeah, I think Angela's got a question first, and then we'll go to Mike.
I do have one further question. So I know that a lot of the gable work and the dental work is wood, obviously. I see repaint, but what if they have to replace? Do we have a provision to actually match the woodwork? Like, is there somebody that's capable, have you got somebody lined up that can do that, or will this company take that on as well?
Through your worship, so this is all included. So if there's any wood that does need to be replaced, they will do that. We don't obviously want to paint over wood that's rotten. They're going to replace that while they're up there. And then there is some additional fees in there. Any additional work is priced at $65 per man hour for materials at cost plus 10%. So anything that they need to do additionally, because they do find some items that need repair, they're going to do that at the same time.
Thanks, Councillor Hicks and Councillor Shank.
So are they going to caulk the windows too? Some of the old windows that need some more putty?
Through your worship, caulking of the windows is not included in this. They're probably more than willing, but we may be able to do that internally using our operational budget.
Perfect. I think it's a long overdue. It's an eyesore, but let's be proud of our town. So when you drive by and you see paint flaking, everybody agrees with it. So I think everybody's going to be more than happy that this get done, especially for years of wanting to have it look the way it originally was. I think it's going to really help the historical feature of the town too. So yeah, I'll move that motion, and there we go.
Thanks, Councillor Shank. Was seconded by Councillor Hicks. Is there any other further comments, questions, or concerns? Seeing none, I agree, Chris, with Councillor Shank. I would encourage anybody that hasn't seen the swatch or the piece that they've done on the southwest corner of the building to take a look at it. It's simply amazing. And I actually have to go up and touch it to make sure that it's not brick. It's that good. So I think we're going to bring the exterior of this building back to where the way she was back in 1856 is going to be very important to the development of our market square. And I think this is a really good project to get involved in. So thank you for doing this. And I'm not sure if there's anything else that come out of that, but if there isn't, we'll look for the motion to be voted on. Seeing none, all in favor of the motion that's on the floor? Opposed? Motion's carried. Thanks, Chris. Corporate and Community Services purchase and expansion of CCTV system. Some more good news, I think.
I hope so, Your Worship. I don't actually have an awful lot to add to the report that was submitted. We're looking for council approval to award the CCTV contract to McCullough as per the RFP process that we went through. They were not the cheapest of the 4 bids that we received, but they were the cheapest that we felt gave us what we were looking for in terms of a modern, refined solution that's going to provide what both ourselves and the OPP are looking for as we move forward. And I'm happy to take any questions you may have.
Thanks, Dave. Is there any questions or comments with respect to the report? Go ahead, Councillor Pennell.
Thank you, Worship, through you. Dave, thanks for this report. I see that we approved the $100,000 and we have a grant for 100, but their quote came in at 260. And there's a note here that says that expected to be able to come in the budget amount, but if we give approval tonight, in effect, we're giving approval for 260,000, correct?
I apologize for that not being clear. I'm looking for approval to award the contract to McCullough to a value of up to the 200,000 approved and not beyond that. We think we can refine the positions of the cameras without degrading the service and coverage area that we're looking for. We may have to go back to the OPP and pull a couple of the sites that they were hoping to include in this round. And there's 3 cameras that we were looking for specifically that were solar powered that we were hoping we could pick up and locate as and where needed, and they're particularly expensive as part of the overall solution. So the first item we probably look to remove are those 3 cameras, which will bring us a lot closer to that 200. Then with refinements, we think we should come well under the 2 or at the 200 mark.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Pennell. Is there any other questions? Seeing none, I think it's long overdue. The system that I guess we kind of still have or may have or don't have is probably well outdated. And I think this is going to go a long ways to increasing the safe enjoyment of our downtown, as well as maybe help the OPP out with any issues that they may come across. And we seem to get them on a daily basis anymore. So I think it's long overdue and I think it's welcome. So having said that, we do have a recommendation that council receives for information, corporate and community services, purchase and expansion of the CCTV system report, and further that council accepts the RFT CC 2024-02 CCTV process undertaken by municipal staff, and further that council award the RFP CC 2024-02 CCTV to Michaela Telecom and Network Solutions. Moved by Councillor Shank, seconded by Councillor Hicks. If there's no further, yep, go ahead, Mike.
So David, as you well aware, and Mr. Brown's probably already told you, at North Fred, there was somebody did a whole bunch of, ripped up the grass and everything else, did some joyriding all around so we have some problems. Is there any way that we could get some video footage, just, you know what I mean? Because it's a high use area and with the damage being done, you know, I'm not sure if there's already something there, but just something maybe more advanced or whatever, something to look at. Because when I'm going through your map of all the ball fields and other things that intersections that are being already, you know, looked at. So that was one of the high use areas, and with the damage that's being done, you just can't continue down that road.
Through your worship. Yeah, absolutely. And what we can do is look at provisioning some of the equipment that's actually coming down, some of the cameras that we're taking down and replacing. We absolutely can start putting up in and around our other facilities, the SPC camera systems dated now, to say the least, so we can, that's another location that we would look to redeploy those that we could.
Thanks, Councillor Shank. And it jarred something in my mind as well, Dave, is that with this system, should more funding become available, or should we find some money somewhere else? Do we have the ability to add to this system if we find that we may want to expand it, as Councillor Shank said?
Yeah, absolutely. It's completely scalable, and because we're looking at a cellular solution for the transmission of the data, we're not reliant on expanding a network as well. So it's literally, we can add cameras ad infinitum without an issue. One of the other areas we'd possibly look at if awarded a second time round is the school crossings, which I know we're missing as well at the moment.
Yep, great. Thanks, Councillor Hicks.
Through you, your worship. Dave, did I read somewhere in here about predictive behavior? It was really interesting, and I think I read it twice, but I read it the day that the report was provided, and since then I've read a lot of other things. So I'm just predictive behavior, and I think there was also facial recognition as well, correct?
That's absolutely correct. The software's capable of it. We're very cognizant, and the OPP certainly are very cognizant that that service will not be enabled until legislation approves it, which right now it does not.
I wanted to ask the question because I don't know who else has read the full staff report as part of the agenda, and I know it caught my eye, so clarification was appreciated. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Councillor Hicks. Is there any, go ahead, Councillor Pennell.
Thank you, Worship. I was just wondering if we could have a friendly amendment to this motion, just to include to a maximum of $200,000.
Madam Clerk, we would have to get the authorization of the mover and the seconder. And who do we have as mover and seconder? There's Councillor Shank, Councillor Hicks, am I not mistaken? Councillor Shank and Councillor Hicks.
I'm fine with that.
I know that's what's come up in the discussion. So if we could have that friendly amendment, Madam Clerk. Is there anything else, and are we good with the motion that's on the floor? Seeing no other further questions, we'll call for the vote. All in favor of the motion that's on the floor? Opposed? Motion's carried. Bylaws, and I believe we just have the one bylaw, Madam Clerk, am I correct? Bylaw number 2024-0028 to establish tax rates and provide for collection of taxes for the year of 2024. We'll look for a motion to put it on the floor. Moved by Councillor Councillor Shank, seconded by Councillor Hicks. And we'll have a recorded vote. And we'll do our first, second, and third reading. Am I correct, Madam Clerk? And then we do the recorded vote on the reading. So we'll do a first reading on all three readings. Okay, so we have a motion on the floor. We're looking for a recorded vote. We need to do three readings. Read a first time.
Through your worship, unless there's an intent to amend the bylaw here, we would read a first, second, and finally passed all in one motion.
Well, let's read it the first time and see if there's any intent to change the bylaw. Read it first time.
As a recorded vote?
Do you want a recorded vote on the first reading? Okay. There doesn't seem to be any intent to change the bylaw by looks of it. So read it first time, second time, and finally passed this 30th day of April 2024. And I will hand the reins over to Madam Clerk for the recorded vote.
Ward 1, Councillor Shank.
Yes.
Ward 2, Councillor Hicks.
Yes.
Ward 3, Councillor Pennell.
No.
Ward 4, Councillor Norrie.
Yes.
Ward 5, Councillor Martin.
Yes.
Mayor Richardson.
Yes.
That motion's carried.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Moving on to information reports from members. Are there any information reports from any of the members would like to share with us this evening? Information reports from members. Is there anything you'd like to update or highlight or anything on anything there, Dave? Yep. Councillor Pennell, you got the floor. Okay.
Sorry, it's not this one I want to do. Thanks.
Great. Is there anything anyone else would like to speak to with respect to information reports from members? Seeing none. Inquiries. Do any members of council have any inquiries? Councillor Shank.
It's fire prevention. Aaron, years ago, we used to go ahead and have, they used to put banners across Under Street. Do we still do that? Just to, because we do so many this month, that month, this day, that day. It's kind of going over a lot of people's head, and fire prevention is, is life saving. We're dealing with lives here. So all I'm saying is with the chief's authorization, if we have a banner, and if we have a lift, is there any way we could put the banner in like we used to do across Center Street for that week?
I think we do have an inquiry. Aaron, are you able to comment on that, or would you like to come back with something?
Through your worship, at present, we don't have a banner. It's Emergency Preparedness Week that's coming up. But no, at present, we don't have a banner available. In the future, we'd love to get one up.
Sounds like something we can work on, I think. So thank you. Is there any other inquiries anyone would like to make? Seeing none, notices of motion. Do any members of council have any notices of motion? Seeing none, new business. Any members of council have any sensitive matters with respect to new business they'd like to discuss? Seeing none, announcements. Any member of council just want to make any announcements? Go ahead, Councillor Pennell.
Thank you, Worship. Through you. This is something that I missed to poll when we had correspondence for information. So I'd like to talk about it now. And it's a letter was directed to Aaron Tires for Town of Greater Napanee Emergency Services. And it was a letter from Emergency Management of Ontario, EMO, that they're proud to support the efforts to deliver on our common mission to ensure Ontarians are safe and practice and prepared before, during, and after emergencies. And it goes on further on to state that upon review of the documentation submitted, EMO is pleased to advise that their assessment indicates that our municipality has satisfied all 13 program elements required from the EMCPA. So I just want to say thank you very much to yourself and everybody else from emergency services that had a hand on this. And I apologize for missing it in our earlier. So thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Pennell, and that's okay because that's why we have these different categories to catch the things we miss. So thank you for that. Are there any other announcements anyone would like to make? Seeing none, the forward calendar. I know we've all had an opportunity. Is there anything in the forward calendar anybody would have any questions of Madam Clerk with respect to what's on there, or what's upcoming, or what's in the future? Seeing none, also in that document, we have the council resolution tracker. So is there anything anyone would like to make any comments with respect to that? Seeing none, we'll look for a motion to confirm the proceedings. Moved by Councillor Pennell, seconded by Councillor Martin. Ready first, second, and finally passed this 30th day of April 2024. All in favor of that motion? Opposed? Motion's carried. Motion for adjournment. Moved by Councillor Pennell, seconded by Councillor Hicks. If there's no further comments, questions, or concerns, all in favor of that motion? Opposed? Motion's carried. Thanks, folks, and we'll see you in a couple weeks.